today you're going to learn 10 really popular American business expressions. But to take it up to the next level, I'm also going to include some advanced pronunciation, like connected speech, and little tips that are going to make you sound a lot more natural and hopefully feel a lot more confident. Okay, so let's take a look at our first expression. The first one we have for today is circle back. Circle back. This means to return to a previous topic or discussion. So let's circle back to the budget later in the meeting. So this means to go back to. This is a great phrase when the meeting has maybe gone in a different direction and you're leading the meeting. You can say, okay, you know what? Let's circle back to what we were talking about earlier. So it's very polite, very diplomatic, and it gives you control. You don't have to say, let's stop talking about this now. You can politely say, let's circle back to what we were talking about before. Okay, for the advanced part. So here, let's talk a little bit about reductions. So instead of let's circle back to, we're going to say to. Americans love to reduce sounds. So again, instead of to, when you're studying English, you learn this word, which technically the pronunciation of the word individually is to. It rhymes with the number. However, with the reduced, it's your lips don't come out. It's just to. Let's circle back to the budget, And whenever I pause, that's your opportunity to repeat. And if you need more time, feel free to pause the video or the audio and repeat it as many times as you need to feel confident. Now, here we have with later in, we have a word that ends in a consonant and followed by a word that begins with a vowel. If you're in my pronunciation masterclasses, you've already had the connected speech lesson, and you might have already realized that this is an opportunity for linking, for connected speech, specifically linking. So instead of later in, we're going to link it, rin, later in, later in the meeting. Okay, excellent. Next one we have phone it in. To phone it in. This means to do something with minimal effort or enthusiasm. For example, he's been phoning it in lately and his work isn't up to our usual standards. So phoning it in, if you've never heard it before, it's kind of weird, right? Because you're like, is it a phone call? Why are they saying phoning? But what it actually means is someone who's not doing their best, doing average or mediocre work. Now for the advanced pronunciation. Okay, so he's been phoning it in. Here we've got the G, the G to the I in it, and we have the T to the I in. So we have a double link. Phoning it in. Phoning it in. Notice I didn't say phoning it in. This is where you really want to pay attention to the subtlety of natural speech. So phoning, it's ing, but the G stops in your throat. It doesn't come out of your mouth like g. So phoning. And because it stops there, that's the placement of the sound that we're going to use to link. So he's been phoning it in lately. And his work. For this one, it depends on how you emphasize, to be honest. If you're saying and his work isn't, then you're going to hear the D in and. But if you're not emphasizing and you're just speaking naturally, and his work, a lot of times, probably most of the time, Americans will reduce the D in and. So and his work. So that one's kind of optional for you. Clarity is number one. That's going to be your first and foremost priority. But if you're at this level that you're following me and you're learning from me, then start experimenting with this next level. The next one we have is run with it. Run with it. So notice fit. This means to take an idea or opportunity and make the most of it. So for example, we have a great concept for a new product. Let's run with it and see if we can turn it into a profitable venture. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to leave the text large so you can see it. We have a. Even though have ends with an E, which is a vowel, it's silent. So technically have ends with a V, a consonant sound. Because of that, it's followed by A. That's going to be a vowel sound so we can link. We have a, we have a. This is not an informal contraction. This is just natural speech. So if you're worried if this sounds professional or not, I promise you it does. So we have a great concept for a new. Not only do we link the R and fur to A, notice the pronunciation. So instead of fur, fur, fur. So we have a reduction, for to fur, and we have connected speech linking with the R to the A, for a new product. All right, let's see what other examples we have here. Let's run with it, So we have the th. We have the unvoiced th, which is our next pronunciation masterclass, by the way. The unvoiced th, with I. So it's going to be with it, with it, and. Now this one, even though technically it ends in a consonant and the next word begins with a vowel, it really is a very flexible, connected speech is very flexible depending on intonation, on purpose, on message. So if it feels right, do it. And when it doesn't, trust your instinct. So let's see, let's run with it and see. Okay, so if I'm enunciating, let's run with it and see. But if I'm saying it naturally, let's run with it and see. Let's run with it and see if we can turn it into. So you hear the linking. Once you hear linking and you know how it's done, the consonant to vowel, by the way, it's never vowel to consonant, so it's only consonant to vowel sounds. You'll hear it everywhere. Americans use this all the time. It's why a lot of times you think we sound like we speak fast. In addition to speed, it's because we don't have all the spaces that you might be putting into your words because you're properly articulating and enunciating every single one. So honestly, your English probably sounds more correct than a native speaker's, but at this level, we're going for natural. And it's a hard mindset to change because you've gone through most of your English learning trying to be correct, and now you have to let go a lot of that instinct and focus on what makes you sound the most natural. Next one is safe bet. Safe bet. This one means something that is considered to be a low risk option or a sure thing. Investing in blue chip stocks is generally considered a safe bet for long-term gains. All right, so pronunciation here, investing in, again, investing in. Then we have blue chip stocks is. Now this is interesting because even though is IS, the pronunciation of the S is a Z. So stocks ends in an S and is ends in a Z sound. So then we link it. Stocks is sizz, not sis, but sizz, like sizzle. Stocks is generally considered a safe bet for long-term gains for long-term. Next one, raise the bar. Raise the bar. If you're at Amazon or AWS, you know that you've got the bar raisers. Raise the bar. So this one means to set higher standards or expectations. An example is our company's goal is to raise the bar in terms of customer service and satisfaction. So our company's goal is to. So instead of to is to raise is. So this is compare correct versus natural. And again, you choose whatever works best for you. I just want to give you all the tools so that you know how to do anything that you want and then choose the one that works best. Okay, so our company's goal is to raise. Our company's goal is to raise. Liz, goal is to raise. Now, connected speech, here's the way you check it. It's not just speaking faster. If you can apply the connected speech while speaking slowly, then you're probably doing it right. If it only works when you speed through it, then you're probably just speaking faster. So that's a nice way to distinguish. Do you understand the concept enough to apply it, or do you still need to do some work? Okay, so goal is to raise the bar in, depending on if you pause there, right? The goal is to raise the bar in terms of, so because I paused there for effect, there's a little bit less linking. terms of, terms of. So here we have another Z, terms, not terms. So once, this is where I just love this stuff, because when you're focusing on connected speech, you actually learn a lot about the pronunciation of words because you have to figure out the ending with more accuracy in order to link it better. So in terms of, z, and then customer service and service and service. And so for me, if I say that kind of quickly, it's not even I don't open my mouth. It's really small in service and satisfaction. I reduce the D and I make a smaller mouth sound for the A. Okay. Next one we have is a hard stop. And this one, yeah, we use this one a lot in meetings. So this one means a firm or non-negotiable deadline or limit. For example, we have a hard stop at 5 p.m. today, so we need to make sure we stay on track with our agenda. This one's really helpful, especially if you need to hop on a meeting and you have to say, okay, I have a hard stop at 2, so that's why you're going to see me pop out. So that's explaining that you have to go. I would recommend don't say why. Number one, they don't need to know your personal life. By they, I mean the company. And number two, just waste time. So just say, I have a hard stop at 2. Okay, let's see here. We have a, got linking there. Have a hard stop at. So not pat. You're not going to over aspirate the P. A lot of connected speech, actually all of it, is very subtle, very smooth sounds. Think of smoothness, not harshness. Let's see, it's 5 p.m. today. So instead of today to today. So we need to make. And again, this is why when you're listening to native speakers, you might think like, why does their English sound so different than what I learned? And most of it is because of connected speech and reductions. So the t instead of to. And when you learn this, whether you use it or not in your spoken English, just knowing it will make you understand. Your comprehension is going to be so much better, which will make you feel calmer. And when you feel calmer when other people are speaking, you're going to be more creative. You're going to be able to participate more. Okay. So stay on track with our agenda. Number 7, have your ducks in a row. I love these because they're so weird if you don't know what they mean. Just imagine little ducks. So this one means to be organized and prepared. Nothing to do with actual ducks. Before we pitch our idea to the investors, we need to have all our ducks in a row and be ready to answer any questions they might have. Could you just say we need to be ready? Sure. Again, your choice. You don't have to use these expressions, but because they're so commonly used, it's really good for you to at least understand what they mean and how they're used. Let's take a look at the pronunciation before we pitch our idea to the investors. We need to have all our ducks. Notice how much linking there is here. So we need to have all our, so we have the V to the A, the V to the A rather, because it's actually the sound, not the letter. And then the L to the A. To have all our, and not our, but our. All our. It kind of sounds like A-R-E. To have all our ducks in a row. Pausing there to give you a chance to repeat and be ready to answer any questions they might have. So be ready to answer. Honestly, if you notice with that reduction, the T became a flap T. So it was not overly aspirated, not t, but be ready to the. And again, this is why understanding connected speech and reductions, it's so beneficial, because if you didn't know that, that could be a moment where you think that sentence structure doesn't feel clear to me, and you might not understand the message because you're distracted. Pardon me. You're distracted by something that you perceive to be missing. Oh, I love this stuff. Okay, next one. This is our almost done. We have 10. Peel back the onion. This means to investigate or analyze something in detail, layer by layer. Imagine like an onion. For example, let's peel back the onion and figure out why our sales numbers are declining. So let's peel back the onion. Now, actually, this is interesting. So, the rule of thumb, if you're curious why sometimes I say the and sometimes I say the, which, by the way, most native speakers don't know this. I didn't even know it as a native speaker, even though I have language learning in my background. It wasn't until I started teaching this kind of pronunciation to non-native speakers that I realized there's actually a rule, and it's so good when you know it. So typically the rule of thumb is if the next word begins with a vowel, it's going to be the. So think about the Apple store, the onion. And if it starts with a consonant, then it's the. So the store. So I like to think of it in things that are relatable to me. I love Apple products. So the Apple store, the store. Okay, good. And those of you who are members, that's from the pronunciation masterclass. You might recognize it. Okay, so let's peel back the onion and figure out. Notice the T. It's not figure out. My tongue goes into the T position, figure out, but there's no air. It's really important because when you're mimicking native speakers, you might be tempted to just drop the sound altogether. And sometimes with reductions, that is the case. But one of the things that is really important to distinguish is when is it completely dropped, reduced completely, eliminated, and when does a tongue still do the work, but the air is what's reduced. And that makes a big difference in clarity. You might not be able to hear the difference yet, but I promise that it does sound different to a native speaker. And in certain cases, it might sound, for example, great versus gray, like gray hair, gray, great. If you take the T off completely, it's going to sound like gray. So that's gray. It's going to sound like, well, what's gray? What are you looking at? Versus that's great. My tongue is up and it's blocking and it registers to the person like you're saying great. Subtle differences, and they're so amazing once you get it because they're relatively simple. It's just knowing. You don't know what you don't know. So now that you know, you can work on applying. Okay, so let's peel back the onion and figure out why our sales numbers are numbers. So not S, but Z in this case. Numbers are declining. Good. And our second to last phrase of the day is low hanging fruit. So this means the easiest or most obvious targets or opportunities. For example, let's focus on the low hanging fruit and increase sales with our existing customers before pursuing new leads. So let's focus on son. Let's focus on. So there the S does sound like an S. Focus son. Focus on the low-hanging fruit and in so notice it's so small. The way we say "and" is so often reduced and then reduced again that if you feel like you miss it or it sounds like it's because that's what they're doing. So fruit and increase sales with our existing customers before pursuing new leads. So when you're listening to this, also listen to the intonation. Look at where I pause, look at how or listen to how I section the sentences. This is going to allow you to get familiar with the patterns of English and how we speak. So don't just look at the individual words, really understand the section. So now that you know you're listening for sections, you're going to hear this a little differently. Let's focus on the low. So notice that I kind of stop it on. Let's focus on the low hanging fruit and increase sales with our existing customers before pursuing new leads. Now, here it would change if I'm saying low hanging fruit and increase sales. So if I'm trying to emphasize that there are two goals, I would really, pronounce and fully. But because I'm not, I kind of shifted that pronunciation. So this is where your purpose, your message will also change the way you pronounce words and the way you connect. Love it. Okay, the last one for today, run it up the flagpole. Run it up the flagpole. This means to propose an idea or plan for consideration by others. And the example is, let's run this proposal up the flagpole and see if anyone else has any feedback. So this means, this one's interesting because, again, if you literally translate it, it's super confusing. You're like, what flagpole? Why are we running? But to run something up, in this case, if you imagine like pulling a flag, to run it up the flagpole, it means showing it to people. Typically, it means showing it to people in higher positions. So you want to make sure that the managers or the executives take a look at it. And for the pronunciation, let's run this proposal up the flagpole and see. So here it depends on how I read it. So I'm going to read it naturally, like I would in a meeting, for example, and listen to the rhythm, listen to where I pause for effect. So let's run this proposal up the flagpole and see if anyone else has any feedback. Okay, flagpole, and so run it up the flagpole and see if see if anyone else has any has any feedback. I'm telling you, you're going to want to listen to this again and pause a lot more. Now that you've built on your knowledge of what connected speech is, you're going to see it everywhere. But my one warning is, even though you'll now see it everywhere, don't try to use it everywhere. Find the places where it makes the most sense for you to start. For example, have is those are word pairings that are very high frequency. Start with those, start feeling more natural with that, and little by little add it. When you try to do everything all at once, it can be really overwhelming and discouraging. So just start little by little.